Hello. So this is going to be my final project for the public speaking class. Just to introduce myself, my name is Eric Bergen. So the topic I'm going to be discussing today is something I'm very passionate about, which is physical education. Kind of my journey, how I became a phys ed teacher, some of my current practices, how I deal with students who are, challenging and try to help them and try to get them to participate as much as they can to help change those behaviors. And then also just, some things that, I've come across that, maybe other phys ed teachers struggle with. So like, so trying to provide a resource so like they can, hear from my experiences and then, hopefully they can learn from, what I've been through as well. So again, my name is Eric Bergen. I'm a product of the New York City public school system. Was raised in District 22. When it came time for me to go to college, I was unsure of what I wanted to do. Um, you know, I s- I started doing martial arts my whole life, and I started teaching martial arts when I was about 17. So when deciding a major for college, it kind of I had to think like, what am I going to do? What's going to be the best route for me to go? And it made it made me I realized that I'm here teaching karate to kids in my karate school. The best way for me to have a big impact as possible is to be in the schools. So, that's when I decided to be a physical education teacher. So I started at Kingsborough, went to Brooklyn College, and I got my bachelor's degree in physical education. Was on the job hunt, for about 2 years. And obviously with COVID, everything happened, but I was very lucky to get hired at the school I am now. And for all my people who want to be phys ed teachers out there, I would definitely recommend you subbing first, right? Trying to be a substitute teacher is a great way to get your foot in the door. It can be hard subbing, working, maybe not working this, a different schedule every day, different setting every day, but it definitely gives you a great experience. It gives you, teaches you to think on your feet, and it shows principles that, hey, you're reliable and that you can adapt to any situation. Then it definitely will help you get your foot in the door and get you hired. So I definitely recommend that to all my phys ed teachers. So people who want to be phys ed teachers. So some of my current practices that I like to talk about, I would consider myself very structured, very strict teacher. That's how I like to run my classes. So first things first, I would have students lining up. When my students, before they even come in the gym, I meet them at the door. I think that's something that we as phys ed teachers, that is definitely something that we should do before even classes even step in the gym. We should meet them at the door to say, hey, okay, you're about to come into my classroom. Because some people, unfortunately, maybe don't see physical education as a content area or as a subject. They see it maybe as, oh, it's the teacher's break. It's their classroom teacher's break, or it's just for fun. And phys ed is supposed to be fun. It is supposed to be a break for the teachers so they get their prep or they get their lunch. But it's also a content area that needs to be taught. Where as phys ed teachers, we have to follow the Danielson rubric. We have standards that we have to meet. We have assessments, with our FitnessGram. So we have to treat phys ed like a content area, no different than, math, reading, English, history, you name it, science, you name it, So the kids, I'll meet the kids at the door. I'll say, put your stuff down. I have a little crate that says water bottles on it. So kids will come in, they'll put their water bottles in the crate, they'll put their jackets down, and they sit in their floor spots. Each student has a floor spots for two reasons. One, for attendance. So when I can, as they're sitting in their floor spots before we start, I will go through all the names to see who's here and who's not here. So that's number one, so I can take attendance for the class that day. It also helps me get to know their names. So if they're sitting in a different spot every day and like I don't have their names physically written on paper, I'm never going to learn it. That's how it is for me anyway. So I make sure I have their names written down on my floor spot so I can in my head, get their names down, and then it helps me to know them. It also helps me teach them. Like you're not gonna be able to get feedback or assess a student if they're doing something and you don't know their name, so that's very important. Then we do our so they sit in their floor spots, we do attendance, then we do our warm up, which is about, take about 5 minutes. We do about three stretches for the lower body, the legs, and then we do a couple arm stretches. So that takes about 5 minutes. We stretch, and then we transition them into lines. In my school, we can have up to 4 classes in the gym at a time. There's 4 phys ed teachers here. So that transition from their floor spots to putting them in lines is crucial. So that has to be done very quickly. Lately, what we've been doing is, what I like to do is I'll call one student at a time to a cone, and then I'll mix it up. And then I'll mix it up, like I'll call a boy, I'll call a girl, I'll call a boy, I'll call a girl, just so they're, just like, and I try to separate students that I know are gonna talk to each other or not gonna like mesh well together. So I and that's also coming from floor spots, me also knowing them as their teacher, just kind of putting them, not putting them next to someone they're not gonna get along with. So from transitioning them into lines, then we get into mini lesson, or the lesson actually starts. We go over our learning objective, the skill that we're going to learn that day, and the success criteria, the steps to perform that skill. So an example for a lesson objective would be the overhand throw. I can perform the overhand throw, a proper form and technique. The success criteria would be like steps. So step 1, make an L with your arm. Step 2, aim. Step 3, step with the opposite foot. Step 4, throw. So I like to ask students the question. I like to question the students. Tell me the steps. Tell me what sports use the overhand throw, things like that. Again, treating phys ed like a content area where the students are learning something, not just playing and having fun. Right? Playing and having fun is very important, but again, just stressing that phys ed is a content area. Okay. So I'll ask various questions. And then the last thing I like to do is I like to perform as my old professor from college put it, mimetic, where we practice the skill without the equipment, just so they get a feel for it, practicing it, before we actually start. So I'll say, okay, everybody stand straight. And I actually face away from them. The reason I face away from them is so they can actually see how it's supposed to be done. Instead of me facing them, it may be like a mirror image. It may throw them off. So we'll do it, we'll follow through steps. Make the L, aim, step, throw. We'll do that about 3 times, and then we get into the activity. So we'll do the overhand. So like we're doing the overhand throw right now. So that may be we may throw to the wall. We may throw to a hula hoop that's on a basketball net. We may throw to a bowling pin. We could throw to a partner. And each lesson we'll throw to a different target, gradually progressing. First we'll throw to the wall, then we'll throw to a hula hoop, making the target smaller. Then we'll throw to a bowling pin, making it even smaller. So like we're progressing. And then we throw it to a partner where we start playing catch. So you could take a skill like the underhand throw and make like 4, 5, 6 lessons with it. Also, when you are doing your lessons, making sure you're differentiating and adapting the skill to meet the needs of your students. So maybe some ways to do this is like maybe you have, for example, kindergarten. If we're working throwing and catching, we would use bean bags, right? So they can easily pick it up and throw it, right? But if you have 4th and 5th grade, maybe you want to use a regular ball. Maybe you want to use a football. Again, just mixing it up, differentiating for those different grade levels, That's very important. So currently we are on throwing and catching. We're going to finish up our throwing and catching unit with castle ball. And then, when we come back, our next further units for the rest of the year should be soccer, basketball. I would like to do baseball this year. Bowling, volleyball, badminton or tennis, and then even hockey. So I feel as a phys ed teacher, you should try to expose your students to as many sports and different things as possible. So you kind of open their blinders, so to speak, and you open their blinders and see, okay, these are all the sports out there they can play. And maybe if you only spend a month on it, a student may say, wow, I really love soccer, or I really love hockey. You may encourage that student to pursue it outside of the school. So you never know what sport is going to work, you never know which sport is going to work for what student, as far as how to deal with difficult behaviors, like, for example, like I've had students, sometimes you have students, yell and scream. Sometimes you have students hit other students. Those are very difficult behaviors to deal with. The biggest thing with dealing with difficult behaviors is doing your research. Talking to the teacher, their classroom teacher, talking to their teachers in the past to see if this behavior is a pattern, if they've done it before. And the biggest thing is just getting to know the student. As a physical education teacher in elementary school, it can definitely be hard because you see them once, maybe twice a week if you're lucky. But you just have to build that connection with the student, maybe going to them, talking to them on your prep. If something happens, if an incident happens that day, I think it's best to go to the next day and try to talk to them about it when they've gotten a chance to kind of cool down and relax. So the biggest thing with managing student behavior, I feel, is building relationships with them, which is easier said than done, but it's a necessity for your instruction. So, physical education is a subject I'm very passionate about, and I hope you guys hope for all my phys ed teachers watching this, you guys, were able to learn something and pick something up from the speech. Thank you so much. Have a great day, guys. Bye.